Welcome to Bandit's Keep. I'm Daniel. Today I want to talk about adventure structure. This could be campaign structure, of course, but I'm going to kind of narrow it down to more a single adventure just to kind of give you the points, and maybe we'll talk about campaigns in a future video if that's something you guys are interested in. I came at this, I'll say, from the angle of hearing other people talk about what's called dangers and portents from Dungeon World. Now, I've never played Dungeon World. Well, that's not true. I played once as a player, so I didn't really experience much of this. But I've read the book, I have it. I also have Apocalypse World, and these things are used there. Effectively, the idea is that you're setting up, and when I say danger, it's important to know that in this case, danger is not like every single orc that you encounter. It's more like an overarching thing. So let's say we're going to have a tomb where there's a Lich Queen and she's trapped there because, some high magics have put her down there. She's been there for a long time, but she's happy. She's doing her magic, whatever. But she realizes that, through some looking into the future, that there's going to be an earthquake and it's going to collapse this whole structure. And she's going to be literally trapped there under rock, and that's no fun. So what does she do? She puts out some maps, some treasure maps, right? She has some of her minions, right? She charms people, she uses spells, whatever, to put out some treasure maps to send adventuring parties to this place to free her. Of course, they don't think that's what they're doing. They think they're going for some loot. So what are our dangers here? The dangers are the Lich Queen herself, of course. The dangers are the dungeon, which is going to collapse on them at some point, and maybe a rival adventuring party. So we think of it like that, and we go, okay, we're building up our map, and we have what's going on in the dungeon. We put some other monsters, we put some treasure, we put the Lich Queen at the bottom. But then when the party enters the dungeon, we start basically a ticking clock moving forward, going through various things that could happen. So maybe they get to the dungeon, and they're exploring around at the beginning, and they very easily find some treasure. Like they open up like a very obvious secret door and there's some treasure right there. Not enough to make them go, oh, let's just go home, but enough to go, oh, there's definitely loot in here. We found the right place. Then they're traveling a little bit further down and they feel the ground shake a little bit, but it's really nothing. They kind of look around, not a big deal, right? They travel some more and they see a trap that's been clearly gone off, but nothing around, but it's been set off recently. What could that be? That's the Lich Queen planting treasure, the dungeon starting to move through its earthquake process, and the rival adventuring party who got there before the player characters. Okay? So these are all clues that are going on. So now, who knows how, from behind them, they start being encountered more and more by undead. Not strong undead that are going to kill them like skeletons, kind of weakish fights, but enough to keep the party moving, that's pushing them deeper and deeper. Again, the Lich moving them to where she wants them to be. Then they come across a dead adventurer, or a smashed up, bunch of skeletons at a dead adventurer, right? So there was a combat here recently. There's somebody else in this dungeon. And it shakes again, and some dust and debris falls. Maybe they have to dodge it, make a saving throw or something to that effect. And they move deeper into the dungeon. And as we progress through this, more and more things can happen, right? The Lich Queen can keep pushing people in. The dungeon can collapse behind them, blocking paths. The rival adventuring party can take pot shots at them, or they can see them move around in other places. And eventually, if things get to the end, the dungeon might collapse fully, killing everybody if they don't get out. The Lich Queen might be freed and escape, and the rival adventuring party might have an opportunity to ambush the party. All of these things could happen, but they've all been telegraphed. We've seen there's other adventurers in here. We've seen they're out for treasure. We've seen they're fighting the monsters just like we are. How we want to do that as players, we got to figure that out, right? We know that the place keeps shaking and debris is falling. We know it's getting worse and worse. Do we want to keep pushing down into this dungeon to get that treasure? But if we want to turn around, there's this undead that keep pushing us down, and we keep finding like little bits of treasure. It's so tempting. Oh, is that a magic sword? Oh, is that a gem? Until eventually we might get to what is a massive hoard promised in the treasure map. So all these things are pushing us forward, but they're also letting us know danger is present, danger can happen, danger will happen, right? And this is basically how we can put together our adventure. Think of what would happen, what would be the steps to draw. Like literally, it's very linear, but again, you don't just make them happen. They happen at appropriate times that feels right in what's going on. That's super important. You don't want, when this undead is pushing them forward, you don't want to make it so that it's impossible for them to change their mind and leave. You just want them to be, the idea is that at some point your party's going to go, how come we never run into any monsters in front of us and they're always coming from behind? You want them to figure that out. That's the thing. So they can go, there's something going on here weird, and prepare for it. So keep that in mind. Don't ever have monsters blocking the way. Always have them funneling the player characters. This will keep them in the position where they're going to think, well, hopefully figure out that there's something more going on here and hopefully get whatever loot they can, get out of there, let the place collapse all over those bad guys and go home rich, because that's what they want. And we can telegraph all that stuff. If we didn't do that, if we just stuck the Lich Queen at the bottom and we said, oh, I'm just going to roll a random timer and in this many turns the place is going to collapse, and this rival adventuring party is going to attack the party when they come out because they're smart and they're just going to sit outside and ambush, you might think, well, that's realistic. The other party would sit outside. But would they? Would they sit there? What if the adventurers don't come back out? Isn't it more fun? Aren't they adventurous? Aren't they going to go in there and try to get the treasure first? What if they can't beat the party? Maybe they want to get in there, get the treasure, and leave. So this idea of like setting pre-planned set encounters where things happen is fine, but having it more mobile and having things kind of flow and work together in this manner with these portents, for lack of a better word, is a great way to build a lot of feeling and drama, right, and tension into the game. And again, this works on the adventure level like we're talking about here, but also on a campaign level with bigger plots. Your danger might be a rise to power of an evil high priest, or demons being summoned, or asteroids going to collapse with the planet, depending on what level of game you're playing, right? And this is all telegraphed in stages so people can see it, and the party will eventually choose when or if they want to be involved in any of this. And that's the sandbox, right? So I would love to know if you guys use this stuff. Do you kind of telegraph this way? How do you telegraph it? There's the obvious stuff like, oh, have an open trap at the beginning of the dungeon to show there's traps, which of course you definitely want to do. But do you do it more subtly like this? Do you let things rise and build up and get more and more progressively tough so people can finally realize maybe we pushed it too far, or should we push it further? Let me know in the comments below. Also, in the description, you'll find a link to my Discord server. Go ahead, jump over there and join the conversation. And a link to my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel. I appreciate that. I'll talk to you soon.